Shall we go?
I think we should do this. I mean, can we remember how to do this?
Oh, let's hope.
It's been a while.
Hello, I'm Simon Mercep, and welcome to Crave. This is the webcast and podcast dedicated to all manner of entertainment, but mainly music and film. And Steve, it's nice to be back. We haven't done this for a while, have we?
Things have been going on lately, haven't they? Yes.
The world has rather been preoccupied.
Things have been happening, yes. But since down here in Aotearoa, we are fortunate enough that life is coming back. Things are happening again, and so.
Yes, so we've got a number of things to talk about in our webcast today. We're going to start with a couple of crime dramas.
Yes.
One is local, one is British, both based on actual crimes, both very much captured the public attention. That's our first order of business.
It is indeed, isn't it? Yes. So that's going to be... well, the local one is going to be Black Hands.
Yep.
About the possibly, but we're not certain about this, murderer David Bane. And then the imported one is about the definitely, unequivocally serial killer Dennis Nielsen from Scotland.
Okay. We have to say, to cover ourselves legally, the acquitted.
Yes.
Alleged murderer,
yes.
David Bane.
Definitely didn't do it. If you, I mean, he watches, doesn't he?
Yeah, he might, or his family might.
No,
also,
his family definitely don't think about that for a second.
Other wider family members.
Thank you very much.
Anyway,
yes.
Also this week, Steve's had a look at the second coming of this character called Borat.
Oh yes.
The cinematic creation of Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yes.
It's made a few headlines around the world. The question is, Steve, is it any good?
And we'll move on from that very quickly to the other.
Yes.
Very, very belated reappearance. Up and coming artist, but then was Springsteen. And we'll be asking Simon the same question. The new album, is it any good?
I shall tell you. I
can't wait to find out.
And we'll have a word or two, won't we, about two other local acts.
Yes.
Dave Dobbyn and
the Beths.
The Beths.
Because we have live music in this country.
We do. Excellent.
Because we're special like
But
that.
let's start with these two newish crime dramas. The first one, Steve, is, as you said, it's the story of the murders of the Bane family in Dunedin, 1994. Probably one of the most, maybe the most talked about crimes in this country in modern times. It's a crime that divided the country.
Yes.
Over whether it was a case of the father, Robin Bane, did he kill 4 members of his family and spare his son David, or we debated, was it David who killed his entire immediate family and tried to frame his father, Robin. David was convicted, went to prison, later acquitted after a second trial, and that's legally
a lot later.
A lot later,
about 15 years.
Yeah. So for all those years, this story divided opinion in this country. So along on TV1, as we record this podcast, the first episode only has been broadcast on TV1. The series called Black Hands. Just starting off as just a piece of drama,
and that's how you have to address it to begin with.
Yeah. What did you make of it?
It's interesting, but it's slow.
Okay.
I think there's 6 episodes planned, and they're taking their time. They're developing the backstory of a rather complicated family, where there's a somewhat one-dimensionally matriarchal mother who's got things going on that I'm assuming will be explained in terms of her insistence that her family is being influenced by Satan, for example. I'm assuming we'll learn about where that all came from. But then you've got this the thing about the dad, Robin's his name, who lives out in the caravan outside, who's been exiled from the house, and none of this is explained yet. We're just given this scenario, this somewhat peculiar family. The acting varies from, as you were mentioning to me before, the mother, Margaret, played by Luann Gordon, she's a little bit one-note dotty.
She presents as a quite batty, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
We don't know much about it in the way it's been presented so far, and it's only been one episode, but nevertheless, right out of the gate, we're presented with a loony character.
Very definitely, yes.
And the rest of the family struggling to figure out how to handle her. That seems,
In particular, Robin, played by Joel Tobeck, who is struggling very, very hard to cope with a marriage that he's being blamed for the collapse of. So that's the scenario we have. And so if this was simply presented as a drama without the historical context, how would you view it? Well, like I say, it's slow. It's developing its characters. It's taking its time.
Okay.
But
here's the interesting thing about this, and it's really good that you and I are talking about this, because you, as a relatively new New Zealander, and I think you arrived in this country in 2009.
So this was just as the appeal was going through.
Exactly.
That was news.
That was. So whereas I, having been here longer, grew up, it was here during the time from the original crime, which was 1994.
Right.
So for those of us who were in this country for all that period, we've read a lot about this.
Yes.
We had it reported, there have been books. What you are just starting to find out about, many of us have known about for a long time.
Right.
And so I found this a reasonably well put together story. It's got a very experienced producer, who's Robin Scholes, who's put it together.
Yes.
She's very well thought of, and rightly so. The question I had watching this was, why am I watching this? Why has it been done?
And that's the question that's coming to my mind. As soon as you said, this is something we're all very, very familiar with, my first question is going to be, well, what new are they bringing?
Well, that is the rub, because reading a bit of the background to this story, the producers have apparently and reportedly quite deliberately set out to tell you something about the family itself, how dysfunctional it was, but they are not setting out to give you a steer in any direction as to who committed the crime. Now, it's gone through the courts and maybe they are legally hamstrung in that.
Yes.
But I guess my issue was, I know a lot of this stuff.
Yes.
What I want to know is something new, or that I haven't heard before, that might help me uncover the mystery. Because although David Bane has been acquitted, no one has now been convicted of these murders. So it remains a mystery, you could say. And it's quite unfair of me to say this, because it's not for a drama, you could say, to do that. The drama is a drama. So Steve, the thing is, really, it's unfair of a reviewer to criticize a drama on those grounds.
Yeah.
But watching it, I'm telling you truthfully, that was the feeling I had, was I don't want to see a drama.
Yeah.
I want a documentary. I want a piece of journalism that might actually advance the story, because we kind of know all this stuff already.
Well, there's a couple of thoughts come to mind there. I mean, first of all, it's impossible to have this drama in isolation. It has a context. It was made because of that context, and so you can't simply see it as a standalone drama. Oh, look's on telly. It's a thing about a possible killer.
Yes.
Let's watch it. No, most people in New Zealand who are going to be watching it, even someone like me who arrived in New Zealand during David Bane's
Second
trial during his appeal process, even people like me are going to know enough of the background. Anybody who watches that program is not going to be coming in cold. Let's face it.
No, they won't.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I'm going to have to ask you to be a bit soul searchy here.
Okay.
You are a journalist.
Yes.
You do have more of the inquiring mind than let's say the next person watching it. Are you certain that that's a common experience? Do you think that most Kiwis will be as familiar as you are, to be fair?
I can't say that.
No.
This is my personal view. I think there'll be many who will be familiar, and there'll be some who will have forgotten, and some who didn't pay attention. There'll be lots of new Zealanders, young ones, and immigrants, and who will find it interesting.
Fair enough.
So this is very much a personal view, but here's the thing about it. I was thinking of another example of a piece of drama like this. There's a British director, Paul Greengrass.
Oh, right, yeah.
He did a film, a dramatic film, called United 93.
Oh, right, yes.
About the passengers on board one of the planes that was meant to strike America during 9/11.
Yes.
This was the one that apparently the passengers brought down and it landed in a field.
Yes.
He presented a film where we all knew what the outcome was going to be, but it was gripping.
Yes.
He managed to find the drama in it.
Right, there are many, many words one would apply to Black Hands. Yes. Gripping, not at the top of the list.
Well, and to be fair, it's only had one of the 6 episodes, and it may, if we allow it, if you want to keep watching it, maybe it will get gripping. But at the back of my mind, I still have this feeling of I want to see something else. I want to see a documentary. Anyway,
I mean, there's possibly an absolutely brilliant program to be made that's sort of an amalgam of the two. Now, obviously, I'm not a producer, not a director. I'm not the man to be commenting on this, but I could envisage a program that is done as a combination of reconstruction and documentary.
Yeah.
But I do think that probably there's lawyers involved who definitely said you need to tread very, very carefully.
Undoubtedly, they did,
because you have got a living person who has been acquitted of these murders.
Absolutely,
but. I think I'm safe to say this, is viewed with suspicion. I think I'm being delicate here.
Yeah, I think you could. Well, the fact is, the country was divided over this.
Yes, exactly.
And the trials it didn't necessarily remove that debate. No. So the debate, I'm sure the debate still carries on.
Yes.
And in the few days since this was broadcast, talking to people, we still argue about it.
Right. Yes.
So that remains, I think.
And it's not answered any questions,
no,
is it?
No. Anyway,
on the other hand,
we've got another example of a true life crime drama, one from your neck of the woods originally. Anyway,
yeah. In fact, I actually kind of remember this from when I was living in England back in the 80s, and this one we're on much safer legal ground here because your man was. He confessed.
Yes.
In one of the first scenes in the first episode,
yes.
He confessed, and he was quite upfront about it. So this is Des, the story of Dennis Nielsen, played basically David Tennant playing the role that I think his entire career has kind of been building up to, as Dennis Nielsen, a Scottish loner in London who. Befriends the isolated, fetches him back to his flat, kills him, and then keeps him in his flat for a few days to keep him company. And he I mean, like I say, he confessed, he's been convicted. It's all very, very clear legally. We can say out straight ahead. I mean, the man's a serial killer. There's no legal tap dancing to be done here, which makes it a lot easier to talk about.
It does,
and probably makes it an awful lot easier to film as well.
Yes, the writing of the story,
yes.
Perhaps, and I think maybe that's one of the great achievements of this series is that the facts are established. It's not a case of who done it, but they find the drama in why he did it, and in first of all, can they find all his victims? That becomes the early part of the mystery and the drama, and then it moves into was he in his right mind when he did it, and that becomes the central question as the series gets into the trial.
Yes.
So a great example of a true life drama which maintains a thrilling aspect to it. I thought.
And I think one of the advantages they had, like we say, is they could start off on very, very sound legal ground, saying, we know he did it.
Yep.
And so let's explore that.
Yeah.
You've got, first of all, 3 episodes instead of 6, which I maintain makes a difference. You know, you talk about Paul Greengrass's film being gripping.
Yeah.
And when you've got a much more compressed timeline to work on, you're going to have to cram things in. You haven't got the luxury of spinning things out. So, I mean, this isn't hardly a spoiler because it's the first scene.
Yes.
It opens with him basically confessing to the police the human remains found in the blockage in the flat that he called a plumber in for were there because he put them there. And so it starts off. It's nailed its colours to the mast. I mean, Black Hands does something similar if you think about it. It starts off with
the crime,
with David phoning it into the police, and the police coming out and discovering all the bodies in the house. And then it starts doing essentially one very, very long flashback.
Yeah.
But whereas Des is done totally linear, but it starts off with him confessing.
Yes.
It starts with the crime.
Yes.
And then works from there. But you've got, I mean, let's be clear about this. Without David Tennant, and also looking at my IMDb here for some names, DCI Peter J, the copper who investigated him, played by Daniel Mays.
Yes.
Those two together are absolutely brilliant, I would suggest.
I agree, and I think actually there's 3 brilliant acting performances.
Yeah.
I also think the biographer Brian Masters, played by Jason Watkins,
yes, he's fantastic.
I found him compelling as well, and I think that's a very clever piece of writing that they don't overexpose you to the David Tennant character in a way, as they also did with Hannibal Lecter in those films, or in the first Silence of the Lambs film. And so you have the interplay between the copper, the biographer, the writer, and the criminal. I thought that was really well constructed.
It is
all well acted, and I think the great the wonderful thing that David Tennant did is he took a person who was undoubtedly twisted, awful criminal of the most severe kind.
Yeah.
But somehow, every now and then, you'd feel just a little bit, I wouldn't say sympathy, but he was almost like struggling to he wanted the courts to help expose himself,
Yes.
why he did it, explain it, because he knew he did it, but he didn't necessarily understand it.
But I mean, if you think back to the way he played Doctor Who,
Yes.
was an almost spittle flying, slightly manic character, and the temptation must have been there to do something a little bit similar, to do a completely wide-eyed, I'm mad, I'm crazy,
Yeah.
and the temptation must have been there, but he dials it back and he finds so much more nuance in it.
Yes.
And that's probably the strength of it. I mean, did you see Mary Queen of Scots?
Yes.
And he played, now what was then the Scottish preacher in that?
Yes, he did. I remember that.
And
Yes.
again, there was that sort of that wide-eyed manic thing going on. And again, he managed to sort of step back from that and do a bit more of a slightly more restrained.
Yeah, a little bit in a way. I was. It's on the opposite side of the law, but I kept thinking a little bit of his character in Broadchurch.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where he was a detective, but he was a troubled detective.
Yes.
And I think he's quite a good actor at letting you know not all is well.
Yes.
Because obviously in this character that wasn't too hard. But
Yes.
no, I found it a very compelling 3-part drama.
Yeah.
We followed it with great interest all the way through.
Oh, yeah.
Highly recommended.
Yeah. I mean, one thing to be aware, you may need subtitles.
Oh, okay. Yes, true. Yeah.
There's certain scenes, in particular, where the biography of Brian Masters played fantastically, isn't it, by Jason Watkins. He's brilliant.
He's very good.
Harold Wilson in The Crown. He's a fantastic actor, and he's interviewing him, and Tennant Nielsen at that point he's kind of in control of the situation. He's sort of sitting back and he's got his cigarette, and he doesn't care, and he's taking his time, but he's full Scots, he's deep Scots, and I was paying attention to keep up with what he was saying. It's almost impenetrable in places. He really, I mean, there's consonants getting swallowed left, right, and centre. There's entire syllables that just don't quite make it out of him because he doesn't care. He's almost like he's speaking to himself. He's rambling for his own benefit.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's his own little interior monologue that just happens to tumble out.
Yeah, it's a good way. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think it did feel like
Yeah.
he was having to address his own demons.
Yes.
The fact that there was a biography there sort of helped him
Yeah.
express them in a way, but
That was
interesting.
merely a catalyst, yeah. And I think this is still available streaming here, isn't it?
Well, I've just seen it in the last few days streaming on Freeview.
Right, and it's definitely worth a look. Can't
And
recommend
boy, did a lot
it.
of people smoke in those days.
You can barely,
Every scene, there's someone smoking.
in prison cells, in prison meeting rooms, in police stations.
Stations.
Oh yeah, there's this fog. It's like clouding through it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
You're right, but that's sort of detail. That
Such was the times. Now, a few years before you arrived in this country,
Yes.
a film came out that certainly got everyone talking. It was called, to give it its full title.
I think we should do it justice.
Back
yes.
then, the first one was called, I quote, Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan.
Absolutely.
The brainchild of Sacha Baron Cohen. It was this outrageous, cringing at times,
Yeah.
sick-making at other times, expose of American culture, really, wasn't it? And we all paid attention to it. Now he's back. Borat, subsequent movie film,
Which is a great title.
delivery of prodigious bribe to American regime for make benefit once glorious nation of Kazakhstan. You've seen it, I haven't. Should I?
Well, I think you are possibly the smarter of the two of us at this point. You saw the first one,
I did.
Did you like it?
Parts.
Right.
Parts I hated.
Yeah.
Parts I was sickeningly drawn to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I laughed and sometimes I cringed. But I could see what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it mostly worked.
Yeah.
But I think I only watched it once.
Yeah, me
In fact,
too.
Yeah.
Never went back for a second time.
Yeah.
Because you knew it was coming too much.
Yeah.
So the big problem is, right, as is evidenced in some of the earlier scenes when he arrives in the US, people are greeting him on the streets as Borat.
Right.
So people know now. So
Yes.
so you can't quite do the same bit of, it's like this slightly eccentric interviewer who gets to milk people's ignorance and stupidity. So unfortunately, that device is no longer available to him for the most part. And so the new bit that he's using, the new little conceit, is an actress named, I want to get her name right here, Maria Bakalova, plays Tutar Sagdieva, who is supposedly Borat's 15-year-old daughter.
Right.
And this is the prodigious bribe. And he's supposed to be taking Tutar to, I can't even remember which one, I think it's meant to be Mike Pence. And he's supposed to be delivering his daughter to Pence as a bribe, and that's sort of the stick. And so as a result, because people are wise now to the character of Borat,
yes,
she's kind of the stand-in.
Right.
The proxy for him.
Right. Okay.
And that's kind of how they play that a little bit. And the problem is, there's just not as many opportunities. You haven't got those jaw-dropping moments where you get people singing "Throw the Jew Down the Well." There's very, very few moments where he gets to play that one. Unfortunately, there's one or two very, very briefly.
Okay.
Now, I mean, obviously, the anti-Semitism aspect of it is fantastic, given that A, he's Jewish himself.
Right.
And B, when he's speaking a foreign language, now I don't know what language Bakalova was speaking. She's Bulgarian.
Right.
He was speaking Hebrew.
Ah. Okay.
And, as he was in the original film as well. And obviously the people who are buying into his fake anti-Semitism are obviously such bigots that they don't even realise, that what's being done. None of that happens in this time. There's very, very few scenes that actually land as a result.
Okay.
It's very, very slow and plodding. There's the occasional gag. It just doesn't work anymore.
What I have heard about it was the headlines that came out, particularly about the former mayor of New York and now Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, and a scene where he allegedly is putting his hand down his pants while the young girl is in his room.
Well, there's absolutely no allegedly about it. He undeniably does put his hand down the front of his trousers while lying flat on his back on a hotel bed.
Right. Well, that made headlines around the world.
Well, of course it did.
Which, of course, Sacha Baron Cohen would have been delighted about. But that made me think, it's going to be lots more scenes like that. But,
well, that's it. That's one of the very last scenes in the film.
Oh, okay.
Right at the very end. It's nowhere near as sensational as it's made out to be.
Okay.
No, I mean, to hear the descriptions of it, you're expecting that basically he was, full on masturbating in front of a camera. No, he didn't. I mean, his hand goes down his trousers very briefly and comes back out again. His excuse was he was tucking his shirt back in.
Right.
And it's plausible.
Okay.
But the reality is that, as far as we're aware, he was under the impression that he was in his hotel suite with a 15-year-old journalist from Kazakhstan.
With a camera rolling?
Well, at this point, it's a little bit unclear. By the time they're in the bedroom, it's not quite clear if that's a visible camera. But certainly, while he's on camera doing an interview, he invites her back to the bedroom.
Okay.
And she's 15 in this world.
Right.
And he invites her into the bedroom. He takes her microphone off her, which is possibly a little bit more intimate than is entirely appropriate for a 60-some whatever year old man and a 15-year-old girl.
Yes.
In a hotel bedroom.
Absolutely.
And so the thing is, that's the one place where you get the shock value. But even that, it's so fast and it's so quickly done, and you knew it was coming because, as you say,
So
there's a lot of.
Okay, well, my view of this was based on that, and based also that I thought his more recent films haven't been that good. I saw he did one called Grimsby, which I thought was awful. And there was one before that which wasn't that crash hot either. So I'm not inclined to go see this, I'm afraid.
Well, see, I mean, here's the thing. I watched Grimsby and loved it because I'm English and I'm also 14 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I howled with laughter all the way through it, and I still thought that this was weak.
Okay.
Even somebody who's clearly the target audience for this level of juvenile and puerile humour.
Look, it would be boring if we agreed on the same thing.
Yeah, but like I say, even someone who should have lapped this up. Now, having said that, another one of his earlier films, I mean, this is going back to shortly after the first Borat film, Bruno.
Right.
It's one of the very few films I've ever actually walked out of the cinema on.
Okay.
I thought that was absolutely foul.
Okay, there you are.
I actually got my money back from the cinema. On the screen. Yeah. I actually went to the box office and said, mate, that was so bad, you need to give me a refund. And they did.
They did?
They did. I mean,
was that in this country? Or?
No, this was back in Florida.
Wow.
We were only about 20 minutes in.
Oh, okay.
But I said, no, this is execrable.
Okay.
And obviously, this being Florida, somebody had to get a dictionary and look up the word excrement first. But once they realised...
Okay, anyway,
enough of that. So what else is new?
Well, funny you should ask me that, Steve.
Is there any music we might have been listening to recently, Simon?
Well, as it happens, there is.
Any up-and-coming new artists?
Well, yes, someone who's just snuck in under the radar.
Go on, yeah.
One Mr. Springsteen has returned.
Bruce is back.
He, like the rest of us, have been in lockdown.
Yes.
But just before the American lockdown, I think it would have been last northern winter.
Yeah.
He got the E Street Band back together in his farmhouse studio in New Jersey.
Right.
And over just a few days, they recorded this album called Letter to You.
Wow. Just a few days?
Just a few days.
Wow,
it was. They just did it, I think, literally 3 or 4 or 5 days. A lot of the songs are recorded sort of as live, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, mixing done afterwards, but the performances are pretty much as live. The songs were, I think, written, most of them, quite quickly.
Right.
And this is the full E Street sound band, the far cry from the previous record called Western Stars, which was much more that 60s.
Very pared back, wasn't
very
it?
pared back and groovy sort of loungy sort of music.
Yeah.
This is a rocking E Street Band.
It's a very different record, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I had heard a couple of the singles come out and were released ahead, the title track Letter to You and another song called Ghosts.
Yeah.
I thought both were quite strong rockers, quite catchy. The whole album, I needed to give myself 2 or 3 listens to just get my head around it. I have ended up enjoying it. You won't be surprised to hear me say that.
Well, not necessarily. I'll come to why not.
Yeah, but I think I do like it. I think that first of all, the band sounds good.
Yeah.
His voice is. He was 70 when he recorded this. The voice is still good.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, it's not changed since he was about 25. Really, has it? I mean, he's still on the same voice.
The voice is still there.
Oh yeah.
The themes of it, because he's in his 70s now. There's a lot more about aging and looking death in the face. Some of the songs are about people who he knows who've died, but it's not done in a morbid way. I didn't think. His language, you're familiar with his phrases and his language. That there's nothing that's surprising there. One of the surprises of this, and it's worth just mentioning, is he did release on this album 3 songs he wrote very early in his career.
Oh yeah.
Which were never released on an album.
Oh, okay.
This is the songs Janie's got a gun, a song for orphans, and If I Was the Priest. And Janie Needs a Shooter, I beg your pardon. Janie Needs a Shooter.
Janie's Got a Gun was an Aerosmith song.
Yes, I've got the wrong one.
Yeah,
Janie Needs a Shooter. This is about 72, 73, this song. So these songs take you back to the days when he was, at the time, compared to a bit of a Dylan. His songs were full of words. And musically, If I Was a Priest in particular, and maybe a song for orphans, sound a bit like Dylan in a way.
Yeah.
So If I Was a Priest, I thought was a fantastic track, long but just dramatic, and he belts it out like his life depends on it, and I thought it was a really strong track. Some political lines, as he often does. The criminal clown has stolen the crown. He steals what he can never own. Might perhaps be Mr. Trump.
No, surely not. No.
Sometimes folks need to believe in something so bad they'll hire a rainmaker. Another Trumpian reference. So he still has that. It's not overt, but it's there.
Yeah.
So I thought overall a strong album. I enjoyed it more as I listened to it. It probably hasn't got a song with it that's going to set the world on fire like some of his other ones. But probably in the last several years, that's not what he's necessarily setting out to do. But that's my thoughts. Yours?
Well, it's number 25-ish by now, isn't it?
Oh, something like that.
Yeah.
In the 20s in terms of studio albums.
Yeah. So basically, he made his millions basically by the time he'd done Born in the USA.
Correct.
And that's it. So basically, you've got a man who's clearly a prodigious songwriter, a very talented songwriter and singer, who basically is now making the records he wants to make.
Yes.
Which is a lovely place in your life to be, I'm sure. So he's making this as much for himself as for anybody else, which is nice. But the sense I got was there was never a sense of any new ground being broken. And to be fair, when you're 70 years old and you're on your 2 dozenth or whatever it might be album, that's not really to to be a great surprise. Nothing
No.
to be shocked about that.
No.
But to be fair, if you're going to do essentially a Bruce Springsteen tribute album, nobody in the world is ever going to do it better than Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
And yes, it is Springsteen by the numbers. Absolutely, of course it is. It's always going to be. But it was. And I do not mean this as a complaint or a criticism.
No, you say what you like.
It was in some ways it's the musical or the rock equivalent of putting a comfy cardigan on. You know exactly what you're gonna get. It's not going to challenge you. It's not going to stretch you. But you're going to feel very comfortable. It's going to feel very familiar, and it's going to feel good.
Okay, I'll just take that and nuance it a little bit.
I thought you might. Sir.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. What I would say is one of the reasons I think people like me have liked his music for so long, and I first latched onto his music when I was 18, is what I perceive to be the commitment he brings to the song and the performance of it. And so it is a Springsteen album, but a Springsteen album is an album where someone is singing as if the songs mean something to him. I don't think that's changed. To me, when I heard that voice, I thought, you're not going through the numbers. I mean, I know it's familiar because I've heard it so many times before, but it didn't sound like I'm doing this because I've nothing else to do, or I'm bored, or anything like that.
No, that's not at all.
I know that's what you mean.
No,
I just
no. I mean, like I say, he's making the records he wants.
Yes,
and he clearly wants to make records.
Yes,
otherwise he'd be repainting his barn or something. But he's not. I mean, this is not. Was it the Ballad of Tom Joad, or it was called? Yeah. We're not breaking
the Ghost of Tom Joad.
That's the one. Sorry. Yeah. We're not breaking any new ground like that.
No,
this is he's staying. He's found out where does he Bruce best? And
I mean,
but why not?
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that the album directly before this was actually quite different.
Yes, it was.
So he does occasionally go out and go in different directions, but in this one, he's just come back to the band, and he wanted to do a rock band album. So I get the point.
But if he is just brucing as Bruce does best, he's earned the right to do that.
He certainly has.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I in my review on cravepodcast.com, the website that you and I produced,
indeed,
I made the point that in normal times, I suspect this would have been an album he would have taken out on the road and toured.
Oh, more than likely, yes.
But we can't do that at the moment, so you're just going to have to sort of rely on listening to this for the time being. But look, I think it sits very well with other recent albums of his. I get the feeling he still wants to keep on making them.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly he's still got the fire in him.
Yeah. So all power to him.
Absolutely, why not? Yeah.
Now,
I mean, put it this way: if I could make a record that good, I'd be awfully bloody proud of it.
Yes. Okay.
Of that,
now,
there's no doubt.
You have caught some live music of late.
Yes.
Including from a local musician who may not quite have been around as long as Bruce Springsteen, but actually he's probably not far off. Dave Dobbyn has been on the New Zealand scene certainly since the 70s.
Yes.
You saw him not long ago, just a few days ago.
It was on Sunday night, so less than a week ago, yes. And there were two thoughts that struck me when I got to Spark Arena. One is, it'd be nice to see Dave Dobbyn. Mm-hmm. I've seen him once or twice before, and he's a cozy sweater of a musical act, of a musical act. But it's just nice to be going to concerts.
Yeah, true.
Now, I also saw the Beths last night at the Town Hall in Auckland, and it occurs to me that for the time being, Kiwi acts in New Zealand have got it made. There's suddenly no international competition whatsoever. You've got a country full of people who are desperate to see live music because we haven't seen any since February.
Yes.
Prior to this, Elton John was the last concert I was at, so we're going back a fair old bit there. So it was lovely to be there, but he still had to deliver the goods, like I say, just like Bruce Springsteen did. Yeah, he's still got the look, another album from Bruce, but it still has to be good.
Yes,
and it's the same thing with Dave Dobbyn. But before he even came on stage, Millie and the Milltones were the supporting act. Okay. Millie Tabak is, I think she's 26 now, so a youngish woman who is really making a name for herself on the Kiwi music scene. She's clearly got a lot of Fleetwood Mac records in her record collection.
Okay.
And not in a bad way.
No, okay.
Because she's got a fantastic voice. She's got an amazing band behind her. She's got the Milltones are a really, really good supporting band, and there's strong musicianship there. But the thing that drove that more than anything else, I have never seen, seriously ever, I don't think, a singer who was so honestly and genuinely thrilled to be on a stage. She was loving every second of it. And when you get that much enthusiasm from the stage, it can only serve to create really, really good feeling in the audience.
Absolutely.
And then the audience just wants to buy into that, and it felt good.
Fantastic.
And she's a lovely performer, great voice, really good songs. And I felt really bad for her because Spark Arena, they set it up so that instead of the stage going in complete width of the venue, it sort of came out. So narrow stage, a square stage, came out so people could stand on all three sides of it. They're calling it the cauldron.
Okay.
And I mean, there were hundreds of people there to see her. And to begin with, at least. And I felt really bad for her because she deserved a lot more than that. I mean, by the time the show was over, it was starting to fill up a bit more. And as I heard someone say last night, when I mentioned this, a Dave Dobbyn audience possibly aren't out there looking to discover new music.
Maybe not.
Not so much.
Yes.
But those of us who were lucky enough to be there from the start, we did get a treat. She was really, really good.
So Millie and the Milltones.
Millie and the Milltones. Millie Tabak is her name.
Okay.
Is her name.
Cool.
But her band are Millie and the Milltones, and they're plugging her new album called Honest Woman.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of Fleetwood Mac going on, and there's a bit of country. Plus, there's an awful lot of just her own. I mean, she's a songwriter in her own right. She's not just simply ripping off other people here. She's good.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Dobbyn himself.
Mr. Dobbyn himself. Well, I mean, what would you expect from a Dave Dobbyn concert?
Well, I expect good musicianship.
Yes.
He also is a guy who's got a very strong voice.
Yeah.
And I think he mostly uses it.
Yeah.
But one thing I haven't seen so much of him in recent times, Dave, and I'm aware of the shift in his artistic sensibility over the years from that sort of rocker that he started out to be to someone later in life, I think, embracing more of a Christian outlook on life, and occasionally that came into his music.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure what the sort of persona he would have presented on stage. So do enlighten me.
Nice.
Yeah, okay.
He comes across as being just a nice bloke.
Okay.
I mean, if I say it's safe, I'm damning with faint praise here, aren't I, really?
Possibly.
This was never going to be a concert that was going to break new ground. Let's be fair about this. There's a degree to which there's an awful lot of goodwill, because A, I mean, he is rock royalty in New Zealand.
He is.
B, we're just delighted to be back at concerts.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of that going on as well, to be fair. But, I mean, I've heard his voice compared, when he was a younger man, to even people like Springsteen, a little bit, or say John Mellencamp. But he's mellowed. He's a lot more relaxed now. But it's what we needed. Right now, you're not necessarily looking for groundbreaking and shaking things up. We want a bit of stability, and we want familiarity, and that's exactly what we got. And he's a bloody good performer.
Yeah, he is. Oh, he's done the hard yards, that guy.
Oh yeah, and he knows how to work, because apparently he used to suffer from massive stage fright.
Wow.
Yeah, and nearly knocked it on the head years ago, and went back to teaching, of all things.
Okay.
But I mean, clearly he's found how to do it. He's found out how to be Dave, and he's figured out how to make it work for him. And it's good. He's got a nice band behind him. He's got a guitarist whose name is Victoria Gillard Butcher, I believe it is, who's been playing with him for quite some time now. And again, just a lovely, rich sound. Everything you'd expect, all the hits. I mean, he's not got a new album to produce, to plug. So, obviously, have a guess what he closed with.
Outlook for Thursday?
No, he opened with Outlook for Thursday.
Oh, okay. Coming Home?
That was somewhere in the middle, I believe.
Okay.
But no, he closed with Slice of Heaven.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, of course.
Yeah. But he did make reference to the fact that we all need to make the most of this because we're living on islands in the South Pacific, and he made reference to slaughtering Australians in the paddock, and he basically he pushed all the right buttons.
Okay,
and you walked away from it going, yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's probably what we probably want that right now.
Right now, we really need.
We do
something familiar, something comfortable.
Yeah,
and like I said, that it's
grounding.
Yeah, there you go. That'll do. Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm doing the guy disservice, and this is, like I say, very much damning with faint praise. But no, it felt right.
Okay, how did the Beths feel?
Now the Beths last night. Now this was quite something.
Yeah.
So, are you familiar with them at all?
Not much, to be honest with you. I know they've been around for quite a while, I believe.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
A few years, about 5 years, I believe now.
Yeah.
And they're plugging, I think it's their second album now, actually, called Jump Rope Gazers. And now, I saw them at Laneway.
Right.
Back in the before times. Back in
Is that the technical phrase for the before times?
This is how the history will now be divided. There was the before times, and now one day maybe we'll have the after times. We don't know, but certainly there was the before times.
Okay, I like that. That's good.
And in fact, oddly enough, I remember I was having a cup of coffee before I went to pick up a press pass for Laneway, and I remember just looking on my phone, looking at the news today, and I remember reading about. There was some weird stuff starting to
China,
some dodgy news coming out of some town in China called Wuhan, and that was the first specific recollection I have of, this might be awkward. Was in fact so for me, Laneway was the beginning, was the end of the before times, the very end of the before times. Yes,
okay. It
was the end of innocence. But
yes,
I remember seeing the Beths there and thinking, yeah. Yeah, not bad. Yeah. And being somewhat nonplussed. So I went along last night because I was like, we need new music, we need live music. I'll go along and give them a watch. Yeah. And so we started off first. So it's worth mentioning the bottom of the bill as well. Opening act was a young woman called Disciple Patty.
Catchy name, Disciple Patty.
Disciple Patty. She's of Samoan ancestry. Apparently, she's related to the boys from Sully Meal.
Oh, okay. So she can sing then.
Oh, yes, she can sing.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, seriously, this girl's got presence. You know, I mean, she's given herself a name like Disciple Patty.
Yes.
She comes on stage. She's got a 4-piece horn section.
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, nice.
Who knew what they were doing?
Oh, nice.
Exactly.
So, like soul music, was it, or?
We'll put it this way: if Millie Tabak has been listening to Fleetwood Mac,
yes,
Disciple Patty's been listening to James Brown.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I'd never heard of her before. I was quite impressed.
Good.
So she kicked the thing off. We then got Mermaidens, who are a Kiwi band. Who again I saw at Laneway and thought, yeah, okay, so that happened. But then clearly they've been practicing, or maybe I was in a bad mood. Maybe I was scared. I knew what was coming. But either that, or they've been rehearsing really hard during lockdown because they were good.
Okay,
3-piece Kiwi band, 2 young women at the front, and then a young lad at the back on drums.
Okay,
really not bad. I couldn't even tell you how to describe them. Just generic guitar pop, not bad. But there's clearly there's potential. That's a name to watch.
Okay.
But the Beths.
The Beths.
So
the Beths to last.
Yeah. Now there is indeed an Elizabeth in the band.
Is there indeed?
There is indeed. There is one Beth in the Beths.
Good.
So that'll be Elizabeth Stokes is the front woman for the band, the lead singer. But I mean, all 4 of them take vocal duties. They do some nice vocal harmonies. And we're talking about sort of again classic Kiwi guitar pop done very, very nicely.
Great.
And the most enthusiastic audience I have seen.
This was Auckland Town Hall.
Auckland Town Hall last night. I was in the photo pit, and as they came on stage, I could feel the floor shaking underneath me.
Wow!
This was a keen audience.
Fantastic.
And they were good fun.
Great.
They really were, and a sense of fun with it. So when your girl Stokes is introducing the band, she said, and here are their chosen votes for the New Zealand Bird of the Year. But apparently she's voting for the takahe, and they got a huge round of applause. So that could be worth a bet. So you could tell they were having fun.
Great.
And it did feel good.
Excellent.
And one of the nice things about it was I did notice in the audience Dr. Susie Wiles was there.
Okay.
And I hope she got a free ticket.
Yes.
Because in a large part it's because of her that we got to have a concert last night.
It's true.
So she should never have to pay for anything for the rest of her life, that woman. She's a lot of respect for her.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it was a good night out. It really was.
You've mentioned a few names there. So the Beths.
Yeah.
Disciple Patty.
Yep.
Sorry, the other band after Disciple Patty.
That would be Mermaidens.
Were good.
Yeah.
And also Millie and the Milltones
were excellent.
So that's a good few bands' names for us to keep an eye out over the next little while.
Oh, definitely. And you start to wonder, do we even need to get overseas acts back?
Speaking of the next little while,
yes, we're not getting overseas acts back anytime.
But we are getting more musical performances
because they're all from the plague zones.
Right. So what is actually looking ahead a bit on the horizon?
Well, I remember, back in the toward the end of the before times when we were doing this thing, basically when we got to the what's coming up next bit, all we could ever talk about was who'd cancelled. And it was actually kind of getting a bit bleak and distressing. So it's kind of nice to now have announcements to make. So, Outer Fields is going to be the big festival of the year so far. It's going to be March the 6th.
It's not that far away.
No, it's not, is it? In Western Springs.
Oh, okay.
Hence Outer Fields.
Yes.
And you're going to hear the same few names being mentioned an awful lot over the next several months.
Yes.
But we've got Bane, Fat Freddy's Drop, Aldous Harding, the Beths.
Yes.
Lady Hawk. Who else is coming up? Church and AP. Harper Finn.
Oh, son of.
I believe.
Yes.
A Finn. They're interchangeable. So that's going to be the big deal. There's about 12 hours of music.
Okay.
So that's going to be a really nice event, and tickets are going to sell $99 for that. So that's not bad actually for a day out like that.
Yeah.
And obviously all homegrown talent.
Yeah, fantastic.
Which is really cool. It's great to see this coming back. So those tickets are going to go on sale on Monday the 16th, and it's worth mentioning. A cryptic one came out last week.
Mm-hmm.
It says from Brent Eccles, who's one of the big music promoters here. Yeah, he said on Friday, December the 11th, Spark Arena will turn into a giant pub for one night of pub rock when 5 of New Zealand's best known pub rock bands will flood the stage with beer spilling anthems.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay. Well. One of those, because I remember we talked a little while ago about a possible tour coming up around the country of an old beer spilling anthemic band of old called the Dudes.
Well, they're coming soon. Yes.
Is that included in this lot?
I don't believe it is.
No. Okay.
No, I think that's actually separate. To be honest.
Separate. My word.
Yeah. The Dudes are going to be doing the rounds very, very shortly.
Okay.
But this is a separate thing.
Okay.
And they're saying that the bars will come onto the Spark Arena floor. The stage might be a bit lower. The sound turned up loud enough to be the perfect tonic for the year we're having.
So, well, it sounds rather inviting.
Yeah, and there's a nice.
It has to be said.
There's a nice gimmick here. It says slowly but surely, every few days over the next month, we'll announce another act, and each time we do, the ticket price goes up. That's a clever.
That is clever.
That's really, really clever.
Okay.
It says, so if you're smart, you'll get your word in quick. Each fresh artist announcement will have limited tickets.
Have they mentioned any at all yet?
Not that I know of yet. This only came out in the last few days.
Okay. Oh, that's quite clever marketing.
Yeah, tickets went on sale yesterday, and I've not seen any references to an act yet. Tickets go on sale for $40 at the moment.
Okay.
So that's a really, really cool. So there's going to be five acts, and I'm fascinated to see who they're going to get for that. That's a really clever gimmick.
Very good.
Now, one that we do know is coming. Mm-hmm. One act that has been confirmed. And I say this brooking no argument whatsoever. Classic Kiwi band, Crowded House.
Yes. I think even more Kiwi than they once were.
Yes.
I think there's been new recruits, I understand.
Absolutely.
From the aforementioned Finn family.
Are they cloning those guys? Seriously, yeah. So they're actually doing a fairly extensive tour. Harold, Napier, Nelson, Christchurch, Dunedin, Queenstown, Wellington, Palmerston North, Auckland, and New Plymouth.
That's a good tour.
It's obviously a very, very heavily North Island centric tour.
Yeah.
But then New Zealand. But yeah, that's going to be kicking off on the 4th of March.
Fantastic. And this is Neil Finn, whose standing has, if anything, gone up courtesy of his guest appearances with Fleetwood Mac.
And that was an amazing show.
Yeah. So
that's going to be really quite something. Yeah. Now, they have released a new single called Whatever You Want. Founding members of the band Neil Finn and Nick Seymour. And they're also going to have guitarist and singer Liam Finn and drummer Elroy Finn. Absolutely, yes. So it's the Finn family band, basically. Yes.
Fantastic.
Moving swiftly,
anyway, Steve.
as swiftly on as is humanly possible.
I'm on a roll.
Absolutely. Now, I mentioned Laneway earlier, right?
Yes.
And without doubt, the highlight of the day at Laneway was a late drafted stand-in, Marlon Williams.
Okay, I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Well, obviously he was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, he was always going to be.
Yeah.
Now, he's going to be doing the rounds starting in February.
Well, get your ticket for that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
He's a genuine talent, that guy. Well, we've got a lot of good talent, but he's
Well, it's
he's
like I was saying
special.
about Dave Dobbyn before. You get these people who just know instinctively. They're not learning. They're not having to train themselves. They just get how to be on a stage.
Yeah.
And Marlon Williams, he just, again, he knows what he's about on stage.
Yeah.
He's really, really good. And he's doing he's doing Oamaru. Mm-hmm. He's doing Whanganui. Mm-hmm. He's doing he's doing Gisborne, for pity's sake. I mean, he's doing the rounds.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive, yeah. Now the one that we care about,
Yes,
because we're Jaffers, is going to be the 27th of March at the Hollywood Theatre in Auckland.
the Hollywood.
Yes, but to be fair, to his credit, he's getting all the way down to Invercargill, Arrowtown, Greymouth.
Fantastic. He was based in the South Island, I think, for quite a long time. So
Yes.
that's good to see. The only Hollywood theatre I can think of is an old cinema in Auckland, but I'm not sure it's the same one. But we'll check that out.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
great stuff.
Yeah, he's got a new album out as well, coming out very shortly.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed his last one.
Yes.
So there's actually quite a bit happening, Steve.
There's more.
There's more.
I'll give you another one.
Okay.
Villa Maria Winery,
Yes.
23rd of January. Mm-hmm. We have got Bitrunga, Tim Finn, the Top Twins, Reb Fountain.
Who?
Reb Fountain.
Oh, Reb Fountain.
Oh, no, she's good, mate. She's really,
Okay.
really good.
Okay, thank you.
You do actually want to hear her sing as well.
Okay, fantastic.
This is a fantastic lineup, and this is going to be Villa Maria Winery, and this is going to be the 23rd of January.
Well,
So-
I take from all this that while a lot of overseas acts are not able to visit us, we're actually doing all right. Thanks very much.
It's their loss at this point, isn't it?
Yes.
Quite frankly,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We might be cast adrift on these two tiny islands out in the middle of the South Pacific, but we're in good company.
We are. All right, fantastic.
We've always known this is the best place to be. This is,
It's been
all
reinforced.
this does is confirm it.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's great. Well, Steve, thank you for that. So I think we've covered a bit of territory today, and it's nice to be back
We're back.
amongst the throngs of
Absolutely,
our
yeah.
audience.
Absolutely, yes.
Thanks for joining Steve and I. We'd obviously love to hear from you. Our website again is cravepodcast.com. You can email us at podcast@cravepodcast.com.
You can indeed. You can catch us all over the social medias. We're at Crave Podcast.
Yep. We're on Facebook and Twitter and all those
Instagram.
young people's things.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We're down with the kids, definitely.
So, until next time, I'm Simon Mercier.
I'm Steve McCabe.
You say it, go on.
And that is what has been entertaining us for the last about 6 months, quite frankly.
Boom, boom.
Good to be back.